Okay, I call to order the special meeting of the New Bern Historic Preservation Commission, Monday, June 1st, 2 p.m. Call to order, and the roll call, please, Mr. Shelley.
Jim Morrison,
Here.
John Schmid,
Here.
Gregory Rush,
Here.
Richard Parsons,
Here.
Mike Wika,
Here.
and currently absent are Molly Bales, Tim Thompson, and Elena Huber. We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum.
And Ross. And Ross.
So-
Oh, right, and Ross, sorry.
Our purpose today is to review the updates to the design principles and standards, the draft that was distributed to you last week. And we'll just go through chapter by chapter, but not literally, but in general topics. So if you have something that isn't covered, please bring it up. If there's anything else that, as we get through it, we're missing, please bring that up. And again, what we'll come up with is a draft that would be distributed to the public, but even there, it is still a draft. So nothing is in concrete even after today. So with that, any comments by anyone before we start, or questions?
So your point today is to try to hit some of the big ticket items, not so much the wordsmithing, not so much the sentence structure or whatever, the layout. It's really more to talk about those significant changes to the current standards.
Correct. And particularly noteworthy is that the format is still what it was in the current guidelines, but our intent is to turn that over to a group through development services that will add more pictures, make it more presentable, and try to reformat in a way that's easier to use, perhaps. So
And perhaps make it more of an electronic document as
Sure.
opposed to a written,
right.
you know, you can do written, but have all the links built in.
So despite the fact that it currently looks pretty much like the old one, the wording is entirely different in many cases. Things are changed, and then finally, we will take that document that makes it through the public as well as the alderman's approval, and then have it turned into a different looking document.
Which I think is a good point. There's no point putting it in the right format now if we're still going to be talking about content.
So with that, were there any comments on the first chapter? The things that I have noted are hearings, and you have a list here in front of you. Hearings and design review meetings have been refocused on applicant presentation and the specific standards involved, while identifying and reviewing any exceptions to the standards in the proposal. That's something we tried first last month. The initial response from the commissioners was good. As Commissioner Wika pointed out, there may be some changes in the tone of the text, whether it's first person, second person, third person.
Yeah, it seems like most of it's in third person, but that one section about your responsibility as a property owner, I don't think it really fits, because there's more than property owners who read this and...
Yeah, but there's only property owners that are responsible, so that...
True. But you could say property owner's responsibility
Yeah.
as opposed to you.
But unless someone objects, my preference is that Commissioner Thompson, who has worked on this, previous guidelines and current, he'll determine what he chooses to change, and then we'll see that draft, if he takes any suggestions. I'm not involved.
1.7, allowing others to speak at COA hearings.
I'd like to move that to the end, because that's really a legal question more than ours.
Oh, okay.
And so we had some conflicting readings from the School of Government, so that'd be best for something that Jamie ultimately remarks on. And we have now Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Bales arriving.
So now we can start.
And I do want to thank Commissioner Thompson for all the work he put into drafting this and reformatting and all the work that's involved to do that. So thank you. next thing I want to touch on.
So going back to what you brought up
Yeah.
first, which was that concept of the applicant presentation and the noting of any exceptions or differences, I think that worked out pretty well, but we didn't have a very extensive application process, so I think time will tell if that works. The concept's cool, I just don't know if it's.
Well, we need to also make sure that if someone is watching the television alone, they have some feel for what we did, and not just say we saw the design review and looks good to us.
Sure, there's enough meat there.
Yeah, so, next point is on areas visual concern, 1.6 and 1. I've always felt that the pictures are much better than the description. And so my question is it okay as it is? There was a suggestion, should we use public ways instead of street view? Should we add something that addresses lots that front on 2 streets? That's something that's recently come up. I know there's one in the past where it hasn't been an issue on a triangle, but there was one recently that has been an issue. I don't know of an easy way to address someone's property and make it a rule with 2 street frontages.
Well, I think it would probably be similar to a corner lot. It's just that you would not have any tertiary in your lot.
I like the idea of public way, you know, and what I would use as a demonstration of that is the parking lots downtown. The parking lots that have public, thoroughfares or thoroughfares where you can walk through or drive through. I think that's a good idea to think about that more holistically.
And even the way between Middle and Craven, all the stores and how you get from one to the next. Yeah.
So as a right of way or public, would that be pedestrian as well as vehicular? Is that what you're thinking?
That's my thought.
Or are you just talking about roads?
I guess I would think so. And I would think so because in an odd way, that the pedestrian views the building, views the area better than the driver or the passenger, you know, at 30 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, the person that's able to stop on time.
I don't disagree with that, but you're talking about some of those passageways downtown, like Bear Plaza, for example. You've got kind of a canyon of brick walls. Is that something that you really want to have?
I guess that's for the board to determine, right? What do we want, quote unquote, control over? What do we want say over? You know, because if we're going to allow something on the backside in a tertiary that you're not going to allow in a primary, where's the differentiation then between public-private space? You know, how does that? I'm trying to wrap my head around it. You know,
but that goes back to the lot that goes the whole way through. You've got frontage on, I mean, conceivably you could have a frontage on 3 roads.
right, but where if you're not careful with that, you know, and you look at some of the diagrams even in here, let's just call out one of them that's got the window openings with the vertical versus horizontal window openings. What's to stop someone from doing a remodel or an addition on the back of one of those and completely changing and doing something that's not technically in line with the overall fabric of the area? I don't know the right answer, and then you're also getting into telling a property owner what they can and can't do, so it's a touchy thing, but I guess I could see using public way, if nothing else, that gives us a little more purview as to how to interpret it.
And could you consider maybe public ways just in dense fabric, as
Or
opposed to throughout the city?
I could see that argument. That actually makes more sense.
So why wouldn't that, in any of the, why wouldn't that be an issue in waterfront or anybody else to have that same
Well,
public rights of way?
in dense fabric, you're not typically trying to screen your backyard or fence your
True.
backyard. But
Although-
there are people who would like to fence
Although
their
there
backyard.
are, I mean,
It's already a lesser private space, would be another argument you could use in there.
Well, I'm thinking we had just a brief conversation a while back about the back of some of those restaurants. And we were talking, remember we were putting a door in somewhere, and there was some question about, well, it's not really public right away, it fronts the parking lot in the back, and so we were a little bit, you know, not as hard because it was facing, it was a metal door, it was refrigeration. If we're saying public rights and you're talking parking lot, then that would come into play.
I don't have a problem. You know, it's a sticky topic. I can see both sides of it. Being an architect, I've dealt with both sides of it. It doesn't always make anyone happy. There are utilitarian areas to a building, but where do we draw the line? And that's, I don't have the answer, I'm just throwing out a.
If you do public, does that give you the opportunity to use it as appropriate?
Well, you always have the question of, is it consistent with the special fabric of the district? So each situation might be unique. And that's what you just dealt with, was a unique situation with multiple primary APCs, really.
Yeah. So is the answer in that case? And by the way, I think most everybody knows about it. There's a property that has, it's long and skinny, and it fronts on one street in the front and it fronts on another street in the back. And so they got a minor COA to put a 6-foot fence around the tertiary and the secondary as it on their, you know, on their primary street. But the back of the fence is primary to that second street.
Linden.
And
What street?
Edgerton.
Oh, Edgerton.
So I could give you some context from a land use perspective.
My neighbor's a blister.
When you have double frontage like that, the front is still considered the front, and what you guys would consider the tertiary is still the rear. So anything that you're doing in the rear is not treated as if it were the front. The only thing on land use that changes with that is, like, you have let's just say a 30-foot front setback, and your rear yard fronts on that other street, you'd have the same setback there, but you're not constrained by everything on the actual front of the property. So if you wanted to put a shed back there,
Which I hear, but yet we do that on corner lots now. We say that a side yard for a corner lot is not secondary. We have dual primaries on corner lots, so why wouldn't we have three primaries, if you will, on the end of a block? Not that there's very many lots that go from street to street.
well, here's a good example. It depends on how deep you want to get into this, because if you've ever been to Morgan's and seen the back of there and the back of MBF Architecture's office, that is private parking. However, you are offering that to the public to come onto your property. So everything within that rear section, if you're going to do this, would apply with those rules that you're about to set.
There's no definition I could find in our ordinances for public way, for the city's muni code. There are cities that have defined public way. Maybe that's something we look at, how they define other cities, in other cities, and see, does it fit? Because it's not easy. It is not easy to deal with.
Well, in that parking area, there's two, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's two designated public slots through there, right? Isn't the alley between Morgan's and Perry's, that is?
I don't know if it's Civil Way.
What's Federal Way? I was gonna say International. And then isn't the middle of the parking lot, as it goes between the hardware store and Morgan's, isn't the center of that going all the way through Bear Plaza? Isn't that a public way as well?
You can make a
No,
turn there at the, where
That's
the
not
old
designated?
It's city property.
city,
Okay,
right?
so but it's different than, it's considered different than federal?
So, yeah, but city property doesn't mean that it's not.
Federal Way is owned by nobody.
It still could be public right away.
way.
Still could be public. Streets are owned by the city and they're still considered
And the
public
parking
way.
lot
Yeah.
between the two, the restaurant and the adjacent building, it's just city property.
Well, let's see how we might define public way and then.
Yeah, I'll take a look, I'll look at that.
Okay.
Well, you could say, never mind whether it's street or public way or the river, you could just say where it can be seen by the public.
Similar to the issue we had with fence
Right.
last meeting.
And utilities.
I support adding in something, some way to accommodate a public way and defining that.
I think that's
If we have
good.
enough locations where it's.
Well, especially if we're
a
going to
thing.
allow more contemporary materials and relaxation.
And what I can see is, I'm gonna throw out a wacky example, but if somebody wanted to go into the tertiary right now and do something like, just had it on the tip of my tongue, Matt, help me out, what's the metal, that awesome metal, the Core 10 steel?
Oh,
I wanted to do Core 10 steel back there. Core 10 steel, I love it, it's beautiful, but it's a mess. It rusts, it protects itself by rusting, it leaches down onto everything. You can have a disaster in other places because somebody decided to do that. And we can't necessarily prevent that in a tertiary that I'm aware of. So I'm just throwing out one weird example.
Can.
Can we? Okay, so I mean, we gotta be a little careful, and those are the kinds of things I would look for.
Because you're talking about a structure of some type,
Just-
or just a hunk of metal in the backyard of a
Well, no,
structure?
it's basically as siding, so we mentioned Morgan wants to go over and put a panel of that to shade a little more of their patio. They could, I don't see a reason why they technically couldn't if that's tertiary.
Well, unless we go with this public.
Right,
public
that's what I'm
way.
saying,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
gives us a little, and again, I think it needs to be left a little bit loose in that we have the right to kind of interpret that for what reasons, and we need to stay obviously within the boundaries of what the commission does, but I think a little control over that could clean that area up, so it just doesn't get to be a mess.
Something we said that's.
Because we would typically say, well, metals, masonry, wood are okay. Perhaps they're not.
so public ways then would include the promenade along the
Riverfront,
Yeah.
riverfront or the,
behind John Harrelson,
Mhm.
all the way down,
Yeah, I think
Union Point,
sidewalks,
You can't do a
walkways.
deck,
all the way
can't do a
around
deck in the
to Council Bluffs,
primary ABC.
right down to Gold Harbor.
So a lot of issues.
Right.
So let's see what the definition would be and go from there. Replacement in kind was something else we tackled in 1.6 to really have it focus more on the structure and on peripherals like air conditioners and hanging units, et cetera, plumbing on the outside of the building, et cetera. We do address it specifically to talk about piping, et cetera, affixed to the building does need to be concealed with paint. But as far as an air conditioner, replacement is simply a replacement air conditioner.
Whether it's 6 inches on wider, higher.
And Matt's been dealing with that recently, which I think has gotten better, so.
And as long as it's screened
Mhm. Or behind the building.
or behind the building.
So I would like to urge the term change to exact replacement in kind,
On the
Why?
structure, on the structure,
because the requirements are that it be exact.
okay.
So when you're changing out your HVC unit, usually you don't change out exact units, you upgrade to
Yeah.
a smaller compact unit
Yeah.
or something high efficiency. So I don't know what the word exact means.
So I usually give a few inches of leeway. So, and if it's the same kind of unit, they're usually doing it
But
almost
I
exactly.
wouldn't call that exact. I mean, I think if you say exact, then it has to be a Z29 for a
And they-
Z29
They
and.
come outdated, a lot of those units too.
Exactly.
Every 10 years, they're,
Yeah, I mean, to me,
You can set a standard for deviation from that. So if you want to change what the replacement in kind is, you could state plus or minus 5 or 10% of the dimensions. And it would probably be my recommendation that you can lump things that reduce the visual impact in there if you're going with something smaller.
Okay.
Unless you want to create a standard for something like that. That's a separate thing, but.
I like your idea. If it's smaller, it's not an issue. If it's bigger.
Up to some amount, you know, if it's an inch and a half larger,
Right, that's the 5%.
or whatever, but if it's.
It has to be quantitative for sure. Like, you're gonna either have to have a physical size in inches or feet, or a percentage of that size, because he's going to need to be able to quantify that.
So this is the definition of replacement in kind, correct?
Yes.
So is a compressor an architectural feature?
No.
No,
Well, it doesn't replacement in kind, it says it twice in the definition, architectural features. Is that not what we're talking about?
we should be talking.
That's what I
That's what Jim just said.
part of the structure, not the.
So are you saying that a replacement of a mechanical unit cannot be replacement in kind, no matter if it's exactly the same or not?
Would it be under utilities?
No, I think what
It's
we're saying is we need to
maintenance
take a look at that and put language in there to address it, and maybe that's where that variable, give a little bit of more flexibility as opposed to the exact replica or the exact materials of a normal architectural architect.
Yeah, why can't a replacement of an air conditioning unit be maintenance and repair?
You have the option to direct that, and specify that things such as HVACs and hot water heaters that are exterior to the building, stuff like that. Utilities servicing the building, you can specify that that's not an architectural feature and is handled in that fashion. But if you're not going to set that standard in the ordinance, then you have to figure something else out. Because right now, HVAC replacements are treated as either a replacement in kind or a minor COA, right?
Right.
Right.
But you do have a point about it being normal maintenance and repair if it's not an architectural feature. Because the definition there is constitutes work that does not involve a change in material or design of a structure's exterior architectural features or landscaping that does not significantly change a property's appearance from the street. So, good.
So if it's in more or less the same location, it's just a new air conditioner.
Right. So the problem is, though, that oftentimes the mechanical unit isn't the only thing that's changing. Sometimes people now have to add platforms because they're now
Flood.
flood area. And so now the platform does indeed become something new. And we need to make sure they're painting them or staining them. Otherwise they end up screening these things as well. We have to make sure all that happens.
We've always screened air conditioning units, period.
Yeah, but
That's the
people,
architectural feature.
but people don't do it.
A corral around a dumpster is an architectural feature, not the
Yeah.
dumpster.
So, but people don't do it, and so just 3-4 years ago, I was reminded that people are putting in mechanical units all around the historic district, and they're looking hideous because they're not screened, or they're up on these platforms, and they're building new platforms for the newly required access to electrical panels, which were now up too high for people to see it from the ground, and
So we need to add
I don't
something
know.
specific to
I'm
address
concerned
that
about-
type of item.
But if we could handle it a different way, that would be
I would
best.
like it called out and treated separately, so it's far more common sense than it
Yes.
is right
It
now.
doesn't,
Crystal
and,
clear.
yeah, I think we make something that talks just about that, so it's not up to you, so everybody's clear on what it is.
Right.
I think we do that.
But
Yeah,
sometimes,
unfortunately, when these go back, they are typically elevated and yes, less appealing, but we cannot really control that. We can just,
Sure.
like she just said very clearly, like, the feature is how you screen it.
Yeah, I think as an owner, I'm thinking a new air conditioner's maintenance.
Right.
Agreed.
It's not a big change.
I wanted to make a point about location. Lots of times when you're replacing HVC components that are 10 or 20 years old, the mechanics change locations due to maybe a driveway or something.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too stuck on that location because sometimes it's a necessity to change it from the left to the right to the
There's
back.
nothing
Well,
wrong with,
But,
right,
but that could be then a minor as opposed to a RIK.
Okay, but you said exact location.
Yeah.
And one thing, because we've increased the numbers of minors, then Matt has to have much more specific definitions for those minors
yeah.
than perhaps we did in the past.
But the fact that it's a
you
minor
can
now,
always send it
and
to
it's
us.
not gonna have to go to a hearing and whatever,
Right.
that makes it, even changing locations or whatever, it's not as simple as a notification RIK.
Right.
Okay, well, good. We'll work on that.
Uh-huh.
I guess the other thing on some of these is, do they all need to be their own section? Could they be like a clarification footnote? Is there a way to do that?
Well, it's an ordinance, and so,
You can add it to
I think the
the-
answer is probably not,
Yeah.
you probably need to have a separate paragraph, either here or in maintenance, or both, or one reference.
As
to the other.
common as a request as this is, I think it's fine to make it separate, but I do like it put with maintenance stuff.
sure, yeah.
Mhm.
Next thing I have is greatly expand, this is something we've done, greatly expanded the list of minor works for approval without formal hearing. What we've got in there is lighting, landscaping, rear pools, non-historic accessory structure demolition, bulkheads and piers and parking. And I'll just rely on Matt, if we have things come up in the future to add to that, we can do it readily. But does anybody have problems with what we have now?
Matt, do you have problems with what we have now? You know, the list has expanded just in the last couple of years to be significant, which I think helps the process,
Mhm.
but does put more work in some ways on you. I mean, obviously, you don't have to get ready for a hearing, but you still have to go through it.
All of it's creating less work for me.
Okay. What about lighting? Do we need to add lighting? Isn't that something you could approve as a minor?
Exterior
It's already
lighting.
in there, I think,
Mhm.
Oh,
exterior.
I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
lighting was first. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we're good there. 1.7 on your list, I'm going to move that to the end if we have time, but that's really a legal question, more so than what we think, which is about allowing other people to speak at COA hearings, even if they may or may not have standing. So moving to, anything else from chapter 1?
And the reason I know I've been annoying about this one, but I think it does give the people the opportunity who are in the audience a chance just to get it off their chest and say it, even though they don't have standing, and we say you don't have standing, they still then feel like were part of the process.
But does that influence the council, us, as far as our,
Shouldn't be, unless they bring up
they bring up
something, they bring up a
people-
standard, they reference something, they bring up information that we don't know or should know, but I would say most of the time, no.
That's,
But it
I mean,
is-
even if they do, that's kind of improper, because they don't have standing.
It's quasi-judicial hearing, so we don't have much latitude. And secondly, if they say something that either then one of us mimics or has some part of the change, that's an immediate appeal reason, because we took testimony from someone that did not have standing. So you want to try to avoid that.
I think what the law says is that you can only consider the competent testimony. Your rules of procedure are typically where you decide who can or cannot speak. So there's different ways to handle this, and we'll run it by Jamie,
Oh, yeah.
obviously.
And
But-
Tim shared something with me from School of Government, that because you live within 100 feet doesn't necessarily mean you have standing. So
We use that as a guide, but
Yeah.
according to apparently the courts, that doesn't mean anything.
Unless you go to court. So, moving to chapter 2.
It just seems kind of weird that if you live right across the street from a new project, and you're gonna be looking at it, and it's going to, that you don't have standing to be able to comment
Well,
on
you
it.
can enunciate your concern.
But you may not have standing, you may not be able to appeal the decision, you may not be able
Right.
to,
Right.
in our case,
Or even speak.
you didn't speak, you wouldn't even have an opportunity to talk
Yeah.
about it.
And then Jamie is
But you
not
could be an
reluctant
expert.
to jump in to stop us, which is great.
I would refer you to the court case decided in Craven County Superior Court related to the townhouse project.
Yep.
It very clearly states that although one person lived directly beside the project, they did not have standing.
Yeah,
That's all.
yet one of the other cases said that they did because they were in close proximity.
Depending on
That's
the
just-
circumstances.
I mean, that's for the appeals court to decide.
Yeah, well, we don't want to go there, by the way.
I would refer everyone to two articles coming from the North Carolina local government law blog. You can get to that through the UNC School of Government website. One is, Can the Neighbor Speak? Can the Neighbor Appeal? Standing in Quasi-Judicial Hearings by Adam Lovelady. The other is, Can Time Limits Be Imposed on Speakers at a Zoning Hearing? By David Owens. These are the two leading experts in North Carolina on land use law. Preservation law is based on land use law in North Carolina.
And we've done a good job so far.
However, the special use permit process.
Okay, in chapter 2, one big change, if you noticed, was the addition of a development pattern for the new Craven Terrace development. And what is in there, I assume, from some source, is stacked podium. Mike suggested multifamily cluster, but
And other people use stacked podium, it's just that for the general public, that doesn't sound like much of a development. And that does limit it. The whole idea with the podium is that you have your parking underneath,
Right.
and John, you can probably let me know. But the concept is you have parking underneath, so you can build on top and stay out of the floodplain. But as I recall, some of these buildings might be wrap projects where the parking garage is in the middle, and they're going to have the apartments, which is not a podium. It's a different kind. So I was just trying to broaden it, not saying you couldn't build the podium, but give the opportunity to have the same rules affecting similar kind of multifamily groupings like what Trent. And the other thing I was going to say is, I don't think you want to say this is specifically for that project. I think you want to leave it open and say this is a good example of it. You don't want to be like a spot zoning kind of thing or a spot development just for a particular project. But make it available, even though it might not be used anywhere else.
so we have dense fabric.
We have what?
Dense
Dense
fabric,
fabric.
Right,
only
but-
downtown.
So,
But that's more than one
so
property.
the current text proposal does say, as an example, the Trent Court Public Housing Complex, da, 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 da. So,
Yes,
so
as
it
an
already
example,
has that in
as
there.
an example,
Yeah.
but not developed. There's one section talked about as developed as the Trent.
And I may have just misinterpreted, I thought the stacking was the idea as it went up the hill.
No. It's the idea that it's built on a platform,
Well, podium.
or a
But
podium, a
what's
platform.
stacked? What's
A lot
stacked?
of times it's two different actual buildings and building types. A lot of times you've got 4/1 is the one you hear a lot. It's a non-combustible structure with a fire-rated barrier. And then a lot of times you get wood, you'll get up to 4 stories of wood that are built on top of it. So that's kind of where they came up with the podium idea, partly. And a lot of that has to do with IBC and code language and how the code interprets how you can build and construct a building.
But Matt, tell me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there not all of the buildings
That's
in
right.
there were that. They did have some wraps, they did have some other things. So that's why I was looking at something more general.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we could
stacking
probably
ladders,
work
another-
on the term
Can I
better.
suggest that that's something that will be
I
decided
think that would be an
by
awesome thing.
Development Services will decide the name of it. How about that?
Right.
But something that to me, when someone says, hey, this is going to be a stacked podium development, other than the people in this room and your office, no one's going to know what that means.
Do we have
I think
definitions?
we needed slightly more generic. Stacked flats is one you hear a lot too, but that's not quite what we're
But you
looking
knew you
at.
lived in tight weave, it's right off the bat, right?
That type of term.
So, but what about the rest of that description in there for that?
The entire thing, I think, is
Yeah.
up to the city.
I have some
to
suggestions.
clarify what a definition from a city planning department would look like. Is that fair, Jesse?
Yep, we can do it.
I mean, that, we can always edit whatever they come up with and suggest changes, but I think for right now, that's where the expertise is.
I don't think anybody's opposed to the concept of having a different development pattern, because it doesn't fit waterfront, it doesn't fit any of our other ones, so it makes sense to have something else that this does fall into.
Yeah.
I don't think it would.
And would it extend all the way to 5 Points? Question there.
It's also kind of like a zoning kind of land
Yeah.
use thing too.
Because the development area is all the way to 5 Points, not part of our,
Exactly. The historic district
Currently-
doesn't hit 5 points.
but do they want a different name, or it's up to y'all. 2.3 has some clarification on utility system screening and painting. And that's where we get into painting, exposed piping, exposed everything else.
But not exposed utilities.
And I don't think we want people to have to paint their
Air conditioning.
name brand appliances.
Right. Because the paint will look worse in
Yeah.
a few years.
But if a pipe is on the exterior of the building, gray building, let's paint the pipe gray. And that's not unusual.
By the way, John, I do like the term stacked.
I'm sure you did.
You know, as soon as I said that, that can we edit that out of the? But when you talk about multifamily clusters or podiums, because the concept of stack kind of is just what this is about. It's kind of a multiple level kind of thing.
Kind of, but then you get in, you know, I think we need something that's as all-encompassing as
I
possible.
do too, but
You know,
of which all of those things could fall into.
Yeah, and then, because then you get into also like townhomes.
I think I'm gonna ask the architect who designed that
Yeah.
project, how he would classify that pattern and call it something. I think that probably, he does this work in New Orleans, and so
Plus, can't we have
he's
a,
probably heard some creative things.
can't we have a glossary or index that says what stack, what the definitions means, so we refer to?
We'll need to do some definition work
That's a good
in
idea.
general, because we're using new words.
Yeah, all that said, we don't want to destroy what he's done.
Yeah.
Very,
yeah.
very well done.
Oh, yeah.
And they already have a very specific name, like I said.
Okay, well, thank you.
Better not be French, though.
So, again, so something we think we cleaned up is utility system screening and painting. Getting into landscaping, we have fewer requirements now for minor landscaping approval, like changing the flower beds is just maintenance.
Mhm.
But, and I believe we reduced the arborist requirement. What is in the text now is we can request an arborist. Is that right,
No,
Tim?
you can require.
Yeah, I remember changing it, I think it's in there that says.
You did.
Yes, 2.4.1.
Yeah.
HPC may request evaluation by an arborist for question or removal of a mature canopy tree.
Does that conflict with the city ordinance about arborists?
My recommendation is that you choose different words other than request. Because you can either require
Yeah, I think the word should be required.
or you cannot require, because if you are saying you can request it, well, what if they deny it?
I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to take what we have and let Scott look at it and have Scott get it how he wants it, because he's the one that ultimately decides some of these things on the trees. So I'm glad it's had attention. I'm going to take where it is right now, and we'll have Scott do Scott.
How about
things to it.
general landscaping? How much do we want to get involved with somebody coming in? Obviously, when we get an architect designed garden, we seldom don't do anything but approve it. And so how much do we want to get in the weeds with someone who just wants to put a few plants in, wants to put maybe a couple trees, but not in the planting strip. Do we care?
No.
Aren't we just looking to see
I
if
don't
they
think
have
so.
trees and if they have bushes?
I don't.
Zoning should cover
If they
that
have
too,
flowers.
right?
If they're replacing a tree is different than putting a
What?
tree in, I think.
Zoning has
Yes.
no requirements for private.
Zoning
Not for
doesn't-
residential.
Yeah, private.
It doesn't cover things like 30 feet from corners or things like that?
Not for residential things like
Oh, really?
like a home.
Well, that's not
I think the answer, Jim, is everybody agrees with you.
We did have someone in Ghent that wanted to do, I think a fence actually on a corner that was going to be a traffic hazard. So I think Public Works or somebody, the Streets Division, I guess, they stepped in and said, no, can't do that.
Yeah, things that interfere with site triangles are a life and safety issue.
Right.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm thinking. I've dealt with a lot of jurisdictions that have like a 30-foot from corner requirement.
But that's not a historic district issue.
Right, it's not,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why I was wondering if we kick that over to them.
And there's something in there, I asked Tim the other day, what are historic plant rows? And I think maybe if we say hedgerows, is that more where we're
Yes.
after?
Yeah,
And not plant rows? And how do we know they're historic?
right.
I mean, how would you know it
If
is?
they're last years, they're historic.
Require the arborist to
Do
tell
we
us.
have any historic hedgerows?
I don't think so. I
Well, these arborist things more
They don't last
complicated
that
than you'd
long.
ever.
So, you know, we might consider whether we need
I don't even
historic
think we need the.
hedgerows or anything, yeah.
I think you make it very vague.
So the biggest, the biggest thing that has changed here is this word indigenous has been
Yeah.
removed. And it's been changed to commonly found, going along with the Jim Morrison rule that if you buy it
Yeah.
at Lowe's, it's okay. I've said all along that what we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent someone from filling up the front yard with river rock and planting cactus or completely landscaping something that looks like it comes out of West Palm Beach.
Right.
Beyond that, you know, if you're using typical plants that you find in the historic district,
So let's
we shouldn't be
codify
concerned
that.
about that, okay?
Let's
No
go.
river rock.
Don't
What? No,
decorate
no,
like
river-
Bob
river-
Hope's house. Okay.
Right. No xeriscaping. I don't know.
You could,
No
you could,
cacti.
I mean, you could
You could have a
add, there's
cactus.
not a, you don't
Right.
need zero
Yeah.
escaping.
You can
And
have a
this is
cactus,
just
you can have a
a-
palm
You could have a
tree,
succulent.
Front yard,
palm
that's
tree.
not the
You
back.
can have river rock.
Right.
And certainly, you could have river rock.
It doesn't say
as-
that.
As a, like,
But
in the
that's what
garden
I'm
bed,
saying,
as
it's in the
a,
back.
as a feature. You
No
could.
bamboo.
Let them build a pop-top course.
Astroturf.
I don't care. But private
But,
tertiary areas.
No invasive species.
Has anybody asked for AstroTurf, Matt?
No.
I've seen that across the country, people are
You
trying to
you
put it.
watch somebody will put something right on the edge of downtown and like,
We have some again.
That's right.
Well, Molly's bringing up if you put the palm tree in the backyard, is that okay?
I see it in the front yard too sometimes.
I see them in the back, they don't bother me when in the back there.
One is not the issue, it's when you're doing an entire,
grove.
West Palm Beach
There-
landscaping.
I know one landscape architect who has a palm tree
In the front yard.
front yard. It looks awesome.
Probably has river rock too.
Probably.
Right at the bottom.
So if there's
Right.
three, does that mean they're common?
Right.
So landscaping, yeah, anything.
Well, you do want to make sure you keep the provisions for your parking, right?
Screening
the
parking,
so it's not like a total,
sure. No,
delete on landscaping.
that's in the parking section, I believe, not, right.
Uh,
It may also be in parking.
Yes, 2.4.4, trees, shrubbery, and other landscape features around the periphery of large surface parking areas and within parking islands. That's in there.
I think that's okay.
Okay, that's all I have on chapter 2. Anybody, anything else?
Richard, is there any, any rock wall that's over 100 years old in the first ward? Do you know of any?
Rock wall?
Any kind of rock, like coquina
Marl?
or?
Yeah,
Marl?
Cedar
That
Grove
would be-
Cemetery.
Well,
Right,
Marl,
just Cedar Grove, right.
no,
is that-
what is that, New Street?
on the foundation for John Barnes' house.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
and the wall along the sidewalk. And then across the street, what's the pilot?
Yeah.
What's his name?
But that's all to be considered.
Where the fig vines are all over this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember that. But it's a short marl wall in front, what's that pilot's name?
I know
Yes, you do.
his ex-wife is Donna. His ex-wife is
All right,
Donna.
the ex-wife? You say what?
Are you on Craig Street?
No, he's Front Street.
Oh, Front
Oh,
Street.
Front Street.
Okay, if we can move to chapter 3,
Okay.
Across from the Bell House. You know the Bell
Right,
House?
I do, I know.
Yeah, and then,
You're talking about the Richard Moore house.
I don't know what the house is called.
It's the Moore house.
Anyway, all right.
chapter 3 greatly expands substitute materials. This is a big one, coming from Preservation Brief 16. Substitute materials permitted on non-historic and new additions. This gives new additions parity with infill construction. That's the big headline that would change what we do now. So with that, I think we need to discuss what contemporary features might be allowable in contributing tertiary area buildings. Are there any features that
As additions.
not additions, but let's say you want to put a door, a temporary
Oh, on-
door
on the-
on
on
the
the-
back, on
on-
the back of your house, your historic home, contributing.
Well, we agree that we have different types of windows on the front and different types of windows on the back.
Well,
Is
that's a
that-
question.
Is that a,
That's, I think that's the question on the table.
Yeah,
We need to decide what's going to the draft on this today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so how much
big
do
leaguer
we
thing.
permit for the back of a contributing structure in contemporary material modifications?
I
Which
think
goes right back into the discussion of public ways.
Let's just think of that.
So,
doors are different than windows. 'Cause-
Yeah, I was gonna say doors are something that
Because
is
those are some safety issues and some,
later additions on historic property, right?
And it also gets into then Preservation 16's feasibility issues. If you have a problem you're trying to solve, let's say your back door has deteriorated 3 times in the last 5 years because of wind and hail.
Or because you bought crappy material.
Well, but that is one of the exceptions that they put in under feasibility.
it says the same thing about windows.
But what do we want to allow on the back of that historic structure?
I think what was said was that some doors are different than windows.
That's it.
I think that's true. I mean, it's true, obviously, but I think the concept is,
Historic doors
yeah.
fall apart faster than new ones?
Well, I think from a break-in standpoint, you know, when we
Lock
talked
and
about,
mechanism.
when we talked about the one downtown on the back lot, we said, well, of course they are, and they need a metal door on the back of their structure, and yet it's a
Well,
historic
fiberglass.
structure, it's on the public right of way, but no one seemed to have a problem acknowledging that a metal door made sense for the back of a historic property
Commercial.
in the commercial. So why wouldn't that make sense to have a fiberglass or a more secure door in the tertiary of a historic house?
Now, let me ask Matt.
I could be wrong with
If-
it.
Maybe, you know, metal doors were available 100 years ago.
Matt, suppose it was not an original door. What would you do in that case?
It's not a one.
To begin with, right.
If it was
It's
a
not-
replacement door.
It's been changed, they don't know when, how.
I would, so, allow a replacement that is of a material that was available at the time the building was constructed. So wood or metal.
Okay.
So we're not allowing them to change the sizes of the windows
Correct.
or the size of the doors.
I'm going back to the difference between windows and doors. Do we really want, on the primary structure, the ability to replace windows with contemporary materials?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I got I'm okay with changing a door out, I think, but I'm not okay with changing out windows on the primary structure.
Well, even a door, depending on what the door is.
That make
If
really
it's an
bad-
original door
And use
You have
the
to
staff.
keep, it needs to
or
stay.
a door that's been there, 100 years, no. And
See,
That's
and
the
I
purpose
think
of what
that's
we're trying to do.
So why not, let's say that it's a wooden door that's 80 years old, and it's toast, it's rotted through. You're not gonna say, well, you're gonna need to take somebody and repair that door. It's not original, it's old, but it's not original. You're saying, I can't put a replica metal door there.
But the doors acquired its own historic significance
At 80 years old.
at 80 years old.
Exactly.
So,
So at a minimum, you go back with that 80-year-old door.
So, I mean, to his point, I mean, what would you suggest a rotted out door be done if it's 80 years old?
Well, if it's lasted 80 years, I think you put another one on and worry about it again in 80 years.
Of which material?
Same material.
Right. Well, I mean, you're discussing whether or not they can replace it or if they have to repair it. And if you're saying they have to repair it, what is the repair for an 80-year-old rotted out door?
Tim just did his.
Well, I think Matt's saying that you could replace it with wood or metal.
Yeah, but I would assume that it can't be repaired first.
Right, and they'd have to tell us that, or you'd have to look at
We
it.
have to evaluate it, yes.
So we already treat things that way right now.
Right, so now assuming it can't be repaired,
Because the question was about getting them contemporary material.
And what about finding the artisans too, if that's getting harder and harder to find? People are retiring, trade is lost.
so
we have a new,
in that,
there's a new company in town that does that.
Companies open and close every day.
Are we okay with then not allowing contemporary materials on the main structure?
Historic structure.
Historic,
Contributing
contributing structure.
That's the question.
Yes, the corner over there.
I think it's a slippery slope, allowing contemporary materials on a primary structure. You're really violating the integrity of the structure, which is one of the key things with what's in the state statutes, what's in the ordinance. I mean, that's the whole thing.
So you allow them to put on a new wooden door?
A new wooden door, I mean, we've run into this before where someone has a crappy door from the 60s and they want to come back and put in a period appropriate door, and we have allowed that. Take a crappy door that was put in the 60s, we will allow a period appropriate door for that structure to go in.
Why would you not
What's it made of?
allow that?
Wood.
Why would you not allow that? It seems like that should be a
Let's say
Yeah.
complementary
May not be wood.
architectural feature.
So how about take that same crappy door, whatever scenario, and now would you allow a contemporary material door to go in there that is period appropriate in its styling?
I do personally like the idea of period appropriate materials, and maybe it's a checklist sort of thing for you to determine whether or not this either needs to be repaired if it can be repaired or replaced with a period appropriate door, right? Can't be repaired. Is there a replacement door with period appropriate materials available? If the answer to both of those is no, then you're gonna still need a door.
Right.
So go find a door. Not saying that a steel door or a wood door would ever be impossible to find, but if you want to cover that situation, you could do that.
And that's where we are right now.
Right.
You get a wood door, which was appropriate when that contributing structure was built.
Right.
That's where we are, I think,
So on the rear of the property,
except for
could you use a fiberglass period appropriate door? You know, like
What's that? I'm sorry, what's that?
on the rear of the property, could you use a period looking door, like they make these craftsman doors, the 3 lights, and if you have a craftsman home, but they're not all wood, I think they're made of, huh?
A lot of fiberglass.
There's
fiberglass, okay. Is that allowed in the rear?
But so, I've always told people in this
The answer is
situation,
no.
this isn't the
Now.
Historic Appearance Commission, it's the Historic Preservation Commission. And so, you know, it's, just because it's on the back of the house and the public can't see it, it's still a piece of the house. And so, from.
But you're not replacing historic fabric. That's kind of where the hard
Mhm.
part is.
And, you know, we're talking preservation too, we want the houses to stand in time and be respectful to the past.
Yeah.
And so there's a compromise between some
Wooden doors.
new materials, keeping the look of the old.
Yeah.
And
Here's
that's
another thing too, we're talking about the inventory that we're about to do, right?
Mhm.
And whether or not these structures are 50 years old. Well, fiberglass doors came out in the early 80s,
Mhm.
and they're very well about to be considered historic
Yeah,
and period appropriate for houses built in the 80s.
4 houses built in the 80s, yeah. Yeah,
we don't have too many 80s houses in downtown.
well, there's more than you think.
Riverside.
Riverside
And
has
we
quite a few.
have approved sliding glass doors on the back of homes, side hall, and Riverside with, on additions that were put on after 1970.
Mhm.
Yeah, and additions are another question.
Exactly, but it's attached to the house.
Attached.
And for instance, I'll expand it, what about contemporary components on existing, non-contributing additions? So the addition was put on 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
Do they get the opportunity to use contemporary materials? Which are
Yeah.
different than what they have right now,
I think yes.
Yes.
which puts a little burden on that to
No,
find dates.
I think that's gonna be a hard, I hear what you're saying, I think it'd be a hard thing to implement.
Well,
Trying
so-
to determine when exactly an addition went on.
Right. So this week my addition's done. Next week I can now put my plastic windows in there, right?
Well,
We had a new addition?
Yeah.
Well,
No, but, I mean, I was approved to do wood windows and maybe I put some wood windows in, I don't know, maybe I put plywood in there, I don't know. But now it's done, do I get to put plastic windows in?
or do you do, like, I think you mentioned earlier, say, okay, as of the date of this ordinance going in, by then, anything that's already in the ground, that's old. But anything that is built after this time in the sand is now considered to be
and
allowed
that's
to be
where I think we
contemporary.
were at the last meeting.
Yeah, after.
I think it's easier to
Date
administer.
certain,
I think people might say fairness issue.
After
But-
July 2026, when this change is adopted, right?
Yeah.
But you know, we're putting
Hopefully.
Right,
wood
right.
windows in, but homeowners are having to come back after the wood windows are put in, put storm windows on.
Right.
So you're not getting the look that you really wanted to create. You're getting a metal storm window or aluminum storm window. So is that any better or any worse than a clean line vinyl window that's double pane, functional? Is there a window out there that looks good and gives the homeowner the qualities and features they want?
Composite.
Composite? Well then,
Because you can,
They're not cheap, but yeah.
Well,
cheap.
so I just had in my office last week the samples for fully solid wood windows, right? You saw that, right? With double pane glass and, or single pane glass. So they're out there to do double pane glass and wood,
so you
solid
want,
wood.
so you want to need the storm window maybe, possibly.
so I guess there's three questions here. Contemporary rear door on a historic structure, yes or no? Doesn't sound like many yeses.
I'm okay with the yes.
I'm okay with yes. And I'm looking, maybe the difference between commercial and non-commercial, because how many of those buildings downtown have wooden doors on the back of theirs? None. So we're saying, we're knowingly saying that they're not going
We'd
to.
allow them to put, but
Yeah.
they typically just put metal, so Matt's saying of
Steel.
wood, metal, or steel, you know, wood or metal.
Mhm.
And that's commercial,
That is commercial.
that's right, that's all.
But right now, we don't have a difference
Right,
between the two.
that's right.
And then vinyl windows, it doesn't sound like there's any big proponents for vinyl windows.
On the contributing structure? I don't think so. I know didn't hear it over there, but I know I'm not gonna hear it on this side.
You're not.
And then contemporary components on existing non-contributing additions.
Yes.
Existing,
No.
Could have
non-contributing
been built
additions.
10 years ago, could have been built
So at what
49
point-
years ago.
So, yeah, so
At
that's
what
a,
point does an addition
yeah.
become part of the structure?
Well, we always require a 2-inch offset, so.
But sometimes they don't do that, they just build it right next to it.
Well, you've got plenty of houses downtown that were built in the early 19th century that were renovated at the beginning of the 20th century and now entering a new realm and actually being amended on the rear where you don't see.
Yeah.
I think
Addition
that
front,
is, I think it's a case-to-case basis. I think it's very difficult to implement hard and fast rules
Well,
on.
my example always is, I'm gonna bump out the back of the house and put a new kitchen there.
Correct.
Well, we've destroyed all
Or a
that
master
historic
suite.
fabric.
Or a sunroom, right?
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
And,
Because people have to live in the homes.
yeah, we
Right.
have to live there.
So I think
And that's
Jim's
Mike's
point,
point, I guess, my door is deteriorating, can I put something that is better?
so you're saying, well, you can get rid of the whole back wall, but that door, yeah, you need to keep that.
Yeah.
Well, no, so what happens is the addition is done with wood doors and windows and wood siding.
Well,
And
that's
all
not
that.
what, I think that's kind
So
of on the
it's-
table now, is that the answer is,
Well.
no, you
so-
don't have to.
Yeah, I like a date
Yeah.
certain of saying, as of now.
Yeah.
But,
and-
but
and
to your point, Matt, yeah, if we're saying that you can use contemporary on new additions, the whole separation of the old structure and the new addition, and you're allowing to put all these stuff, but the door right next to it, the back door, you need to have a period door there, even though you've blown out the whole back of the building to put hardy board on.
But are you gonna use an outdoor in the historic district residential? No,
But you might use a full glass
not.
door.
No, fiberglass, I was thinking, not metal.
but not metal. You're not gonna use
Or
metal
full
on a historic
glass.
structure.
Full glass,
A
contemporary.
screen door maybe.
So it sounds like no vinyl windows on historic. It sounds like no contemporary components on other than historic, on non-historic additions to historic structures.
What?
You're starting on a certain date.
So, yeah, because the other part of the question is, somebody put an addition on a contributing structure 20 years ago,
Right.
or even 40, 50 years ago. Is the entire house, I mean, the entire house is declared to be contributing or non-contributing. It doesn't say, well, the front part of the house is contributing, but the back house is non-contributing. It doesn't say that either, unless you want to start creating that kind of distinction.
Yeah, I'm not a proponent, but
And we'll have to go through every house that has an
Look at
addition.
800
I think this, Tim, this is in what you got in here, right? A non-contributing addition.
Is the separate part in this,
You see what I'm saying?
No, it's in
the, the materials?
you have a components
Handout.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
There's really nothing in this draft
I saw it,
related to, what do I call it? Components.
I saw it in the
Components
chart.
document.
Correct.
So it sounds like we want to pick a date certain for additions. Because what we're really doing then in that 20-year-old is removing not historic fabric, but historic fabric potentially from a contributing structure.
So let me ask you
Because
this.
they had to use wood 20 years ago.
Right. We've talked a little bit about allowing new additions to use contemporary.
Right.
And everybody kind of said, yeah, that seems reasonable. Is everybody still comfortable that new additions can use contemporary materials?
Well, it puts them on a parity with infill. which was a complaint people had in our meetings.
And I think we only ever said on the tertiary,
Right.
amongst discussion, that's important to
Of course.
throw out
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah. I just want to.
Because it came up, I think
Because-
Elena said, well, what if they want to put addition on the
And
front?
so,
And we said, no.
I think we all kind of said, yeah, could work, but now as we start
Yeah.
talking about it, everybody's like, well, maybe we don't want,
Remember, the
Vinyl,
Preservation
maybe
Brief
we don't want-
16 rationale is that this is another way to differentiate the new construction.
I get it all, but, then you have to be willing to say, okay, we're gonna be living with hardy board vinyl windows on the back of a historic house.
Well,
On the addition to
On the
back.
addition to
On
it.
the back, which becomes part of the house, essentially,
Now differentiated.
not differentiated, a little different
Yeah,
differentiation.
yeah.
In addition to the other differentiations.
Yes.
well, okay, so for windows, you've got wood windows, you've got vinyl windows, you've got composite materials.
Clad.
So,
Clad windows.
well, yeah, vinyl clad, which I still
there's
consider a
aluminum.
vinyl window because if the vinyl cracks, the wood
Aluminum clad.
rots.
Aluminum clad.
You got metal too.
Well, same thing. Obviously with wood, you can replicate any kind of window. With the composite materials, it's possible to replicate windows. With something like vinyl or aluminum clad, it's not possible to replicate a window or even make the window kind of sort of look like what's on the primary structure. And in reviewing what folks have done with other guidelines, there are places that say no vinyl windows, composite or wood. So that would give us, the ability to keep the back of a house from looking like, a double wide that's been added to the primary structure.
So additions would have composite windows, what about infill? Right now, we
But
have
infill's,
We don't allow vinyl siding, why do we allow vinyl?
infill is whatever disconverted materials are available, right?
But, so
Well,
what
John's point-
makes an infill different than an addition? Other than it's on the back of a contributing structure?
Well, that's the whole thing. Do we want to keep, if there's an addition, do we want to carry over the architectural form from the primary structure to the addition? 6 over 6 windows, that's on the primary structure.
Complementary.
Sure, exactly.
The siding, if we go with hardy board, do we want the thin 3/8 inch stuff? They do make hardy board now. I can't remember the name of it, but it replicates the thicker clapboard. So
Now, there
again, it
is-
doesn't look exactly the same, but it
There
replicates
is
the
one
dimension.
of the preservation briefs that, or more than one, that talks about making sure there's a differentiation between the original structure and the addition.
And we require that.
We require that, although if you look at a lot of our additions, it looks the same,
You gotta look for it.
exactly, the outside siding is almost lined up exactly, it's the same coverage, it's the same, most of them you can't tell that they're not original structures. Is that a big deal? I think it looks good, but I know that there is some guidance that says you should not try to perfectly match. You should have some kind of a way of differentiating additions from main structures.
It's usually vertical.
There's terminology in the Preservation Brief 16 about visually emulate versus match.
Complementary.
Hmm.
Complementary.
So-
Very few structures on the 600 block of East Front Street haven't had an addition done in the 20th century. Or something.
What is
Now,
visually
there
imitated?
have been very few infills in the tightweed local historic district, except a good number in Riverside. Have we destroyed Riverside
Character.
by
It's already pretty far
allowing
gone.
that? The house on National Avenue
Yeah,
doesn't stand out.
not at all. Yeah.
It's a big house, so it looks a lot bigger than it.
It's taller,
Yeah.
it's got a big
But
attic.
it's got vinyl windows, you know, all the things that we've just talked about, but that's infill.
The house where the Pepsi building used to be.
But it's recognized as a new structure though, right?
No, I'm saying, have we destroyed the special character of the historic district? No,
I don't think so.
my opinion, but anyway.
I was just the devil's advocate on this addition versus infill. Is there a difference? If we're saying any new construction on infill, you can use contemporary materials, but new construction on the back of the contributing, yeah, sorry, you have to use traditional materials, even though we said that it's not supposed to match, it's supposed to be of a style
Well-
that complements, or whatever the term is that Molly just used.
So an addition on the side is okay, but not on,
No, but I think that's the,
I mean, I think you have to say additions are the same as infill. That's a clear way to me to explain it.
If it's contributing, or whether it's not contributing.
Well, it's an addition. It's just an addition. If it's a non-contributing building, you can use contemporary materials.
yeah, I don't think that's an issue.
But it's in a
But
historic
now we're
district.
talking about an addition to a contributing structure. Can you use contemporary materials? And from a public standpoint, I think the perception is, oh, my hardy board's gonna be cheaper to maintain, all these things. It may not be, and Richard's 200-year-old windows and all these things that we can point out, we can give them a lot of information about windows and materials. Everything needs maintenance. Hardy board can get destroyed by water just as well as wood.
But Airbnb owners don't care about that.
Well,
And every salesman, every window salesman is gonna disagree
That's right.
with Richard and say,
yeah.
you're losing your shirt out the window every, put these vinyl windows in, energy bills will be cut in half.
And my point is, if the window saves 40%, how about the wall that has no insulation whatsoever?
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there studies have shown up in the past probably 5 or 10 years that show that taking a historic house and replacing the windows, you're not going to get
Especially if
the
the storm,
magical 40%.
if you have a storm window and regular fixed up wood with proper glazing, it's certainly much better.
You lose a majority of the heat through the roof and through the floor.
But if you if a window salesperson tells a homeowner, look at how old these windows are. I can replace these for state of the art for only $3,000 a window, and you're going to get all kind of energy savings. I think they'd be more apt to listen to that guy than they are to you and Richard's study of repair of wooden windows.
Matt's story they were sharing earlier about the windows, these people came in, Matt went and looked at all the windows, and they were salvageable. I mean, some of them were just, you could explain what the condition is better, but, and they had a contractor that knows how to fix them, an expert at that, and they would have probably spent less money repairing than they would have replacing. And they wouldn't have the weighty glass, and they wouldn't have the character,
And we have some excellent videos that show why
Yeah, no,
wood windows,
I-
old
I-
windows
I-
are repairable.
I'm
You can
with-
provide all kinds, but it's not, you can't go to Lowe's and say, I'll take 20 of these things, and you'll be here in a month to put them in.
So I guess devil's advocate, are we saying though, if we think wood is the better option, are we better off saying, yeah, we're sticking with traditional materials on new additions?
For an addition, I think the way that we could do this is define the available contemporary materials that complement the existing primary structure. I don't have a problem with the hardy board if it complements the primary structure. That's why I said, you know,
Do you
the
call them
3/8, the
vinyl?
thin 3/8 inch stuff versus the, you know, the thicker hardy board that actually has the dimensions and the texture and profile of real clapboard. I think those are two different things. I think,
Windows?
I think a composite material versus vinyl or aluminum clad, it's certainly going to complement the structure, the primary structure, more than, you know, vinyl or aluminum windows.
Now, Preservation Brief 16 does not say allow vinyl windows. It says consider contemporary materials. So what you're saying, we could define for additions to historic structures a different parameter than we had for pure infill construction.
Well, I see infill construction as something else.
Right.
You know, we want the infill construction to, you know, to not diminish what's around it. An addition is something different because you're adding something to an existing contributing
And
structure.
extending the architectural detail and
Correct.
everything else.
I agree with Tim, and I think that there's not a historic house in this town that could have been built under our guidelines, because every historic house was modern and new and different, and used different materials and different styles and different looks. And that's, I don't see anything wrong with building a completely traditional, completely contemporary house on the appropriate lot. But, I mean, that's fine, but we have to keep the old stuff that we've got. And I think this is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So allowing specific contemporary materials to contributing structure additions.
Or maybe a composite window emulating wood windows as opposed to looking like a vinyl window.
Yeah. One of the things that I always think of, and if you go down past your street, and then Richard and Molly are familiar with what's called the Six Sisters. Yes, those are historic houses. They were built in the 20s. But, I mean, if you look at what's been done to those, yes, they have vinyl siding, but they also have vinyl windows. And it just, I mean, it doesn't look right. There's a house on North Craven Street, right beside Monk Mallard Park. And it's actually sister houses that sit there. The house right beside Monk Mallard Park had wood windows replaced with vinyl windows. It just does not reflect, you know, what the structure is. And that's the whole thing with an addition. You want, to me, you want the addition to reflect what the primary structure is. I don't think you can get there with vinyl windows.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on that, I think what we heard in the charrettes from the public is, so if I build a new house, an infill house, I can use all the contemporary materials.
Mhm.
But if I'm adding on to the back of my house and putting in a new kitchen or whatever else, I've got to use a whole different palette of materials that makes it much more expensive and cumbersome. I'd be better off, you know, doing something else than adding on to this
You know,
house.
sell the house and buy a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke Jackson did it.
Yeah, go to
So I'm okay with that, but that's something that we did hear from the public, and something that I just want to make sure that if we are going to say, yeah, we hear you, but our contemporary materials are only going to be used for new structures. Anything that's attached to a contributing structure has a different set of criteria. So you really have three sets of criteria, if you will. The main contributing structure, especially the primary ABC, perhaps some minor leeway on additions in the tertiary for contributing structures, and then all new contemporary for infills. Is that?
Yeah, but let's let's get back to what is okay for the rear.
Yeah, the
Siding, is it, we talked about might be something to talk about.
Uh-huh.
We ruled out vinyl windows. What do we decide on doors? Is that a per case situation or,
For the back of the historic structure?
well, the back of an addition?
Well, I think it should be kind of along the same lines as the contemporary materials should reflect the mass form, scale, texture, profile of the original, of the primary structure.
Agreed.
And I don't have a problem with allowing contemporary materials, but again, the whole thing is trying to make sure that the new addition reflects the primary structure as opposed to being something just, completely fake and arbitrary. That's what, to me, that's what we're trying to get to.
Which is visually emulating.
Yes.
I'm not sure fake and arbitrary are the right
Like a
descriptors, but-
Four Seasons room at the back of a house, that wouldn't look very, it wouldn't be fitting with that original structure, but it is a contemporary look. And is it bad, is it good?
I'd say sunroom, look at the house next to you, the back addition, that sunroom back there. Under that, he could not build that, it doesn't really reflect the character of the original house, correct?
On our house?
No, the one next to you.
Oh, you're talking about Best Guy.
Royce, yes.
Roy's
Yeah,
house,
right.
on the
That
back.
That was built in 2000.
But that, you would say that addition should not have been allowed, because it doesn't really reflect the character of the main structure.
I would say the addition should have been allowed, but it should have been in a bit of a different form. The one that I think of is the Riggs building on Craven Street. It's where the Polos live. It's got the bridal
Oh,
shop.
yeah, uh-huh.
If you go around to the back, they added an addition on the back, and it's clearly a different, it's a contemporary structure. It's an addition. But I thought that was done because it complements the primary brick structure. And I think, I'm trying to remember, Jim, you remember, I want to say that there's contemporary windows and maybe even contemporary siding.
They had the windows, new windows built because the old windows were destroyed,
Right,
trying to get them out.
but on the back, on the addition,
The addition does have, I think, metal around that
I think so.
upstairs.
Yeah,
You know, what do you want to call it, sunroom?
yeah.
Yeah. But
And
it's
as
an
you
addition.
wrote it, then no sliders.
No sliders, what do you mean sliders?
Sliding doors.
Sliding doors. No full glass,
We've done
French doors.
we've done it in Riverside.
Again, I
We
mean,
have.
you know,
You
you're,
approved it.
Well, then you get in, if you prohibit that, you're getting into down zoning.
well,
Creating and creating something that's in violation that would be a non-conforming structure.
well, and we tend not to get down to details like that in the sense that, no, you can't have French doors, no, you can't have a sliding door. That decision is made with what's put in front of us. What we're trying to do here with the guidelines is trying to draw a box around the guidance or the outcomes that we're trying to get to. And it's not
I'm with
necessarily
you.
that level of specifics of, no, you can't have French doors.
Well, but I think because these are standards now, not guidelines, you have to kind of say what is within the realm of allowable and what's not allowable. You can't just say, well, we encourage you to do this, or we would like to see that. I think as standards, you have to say, this is acceptable and this isn't.
Yes.
But what about,
I mean, fundamentally disagree with that. In conversations with Scott, Scott has said that the way that we get to a decision has not changed. The state statutes have not changed on that. Because the only standard that we have to meet is it not incongruous with the special character of the historic district? That's still in the state statutes, that's still in the city ordinances. And what the standards, the guidelines, the rat in the cage, whatever you want to call them, we still use those as guidance, as defining the outcomes and looking at the whole of getting to the decision as to whether this thing meets enough of the standards, guidelines, dead rats in a cage, so that we can say that yes, this is not incongruous with the special character of the
You said two
historic
different
district.
things there.
That
And I-
has not
I know we had
changed.
this conversation, but you can't say on one hand, the only thing that we're looking at is making sure it doesn't affect the special, the fabric of our community. But here's a bunch of standards that you have to follow too. You can't do both. I mean, so if that's going to be the case, that it's just preserving the special nature of the historic district, you don't need all of this. You can just say that's what we're doing. And I think Scott would have a heart attack if you
But
said
I
that's
think-
our new standard.
If we're talking about an addition to the historic structure, and they want to put a sliding glass door with metal frame, there's nothing that prohibits that, right? Because it's metal. Right?
Well, and then you get into the fact that this is a quasi judicial hearing based off of evidence, which you're using to make a determination as to whether or not it's fitting or it's not. Well, what is something that you can point to that says this is in fact congruous or incongruous? Because having something that complements is subjective, right?
That's right.
So how can you make a decision that's subjective based off of facts and evidence?
Well, but it's quasi judicial because we do make a decision. If it was simply roll through the 26 standards, we wouldn't need a commission.
And I agree with you. I think, sadly enough, I'm sitting next to Richard, and I'm much more aligned with keeping as much, preserving as much, but that I recognize that as a growing city, I don't know that you can not make some incremental changes on some of these things like additions, like putting, yeah, sliding door is metal, but it's aluminum. That was not around. It's
Aluminum's been around a long time,
yeah,
but still, it's metal.
it's metal. But the style of a sliding glass door with all glass and the frame around is certainly nothing that was around 50 years ago, 80 years ago.
But we want to also reflect architectural styles of the time.
And that's
So-
kind of my dilemma.
It sounds like we had an easy to apply idea of treating tertiary additions like infill development. What I'm hearing from the 6 of you here today is that maybe that's not the case anymore. We want we're willing to allow more materials, but not all the modern materials, and we need to actually make a list of what we feel like just appropriate enough for these rear additions. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm saying.
But
I'm not sure what I'm saying.
But
I
it's a
think
very, I think it's a very limited difference between
I think you're
the
right.
addition and the new infill. It's really just windows, right? It's really just windows
What?
about that addition to a historic structure. We aren't worried about them using a composite door.
I think we just list out the things that we're willing to accept when they bring you your proposal, but
You know, I think Tim's suggestion.
Or
the
don't accept.
I
windows-
think Tim summarized where he was comfortable pretty
or
well.
what about shorter list, don't accept?
A don't accept list is probably easier. It's coming to y'all
Because
anyways.
you're gonna say French doors, sliding doors, I don't know.
I don't think we've ever had
I don't think we need to
arguments about
describe the
doors
door, yeah.
additions. We've never had arguments about they can't do that back door, that I know of. You know, if somebody has a slider, that's what they want, they have a nice patio, we approve it. If they have French doors, we approve it. If they just have a standard door, we approve it, right?
I really like Tim's table where you have those different situations and criteria.
Yeah.
And maybe that's another appropriate thing to do for doors and maybe again for windows
Agreed.
specifically.
But it sounds like doors have not been a big issue for anybody on additions to historic structures.
Well, you might only have one or two, but you'll have
The
Potentially
siding, I
10,
think-
20, 30 windows.
Does anybody have a problem with hardy board that visually emulates what's on the house?
Yeah.
So I think we're down to just the windows, so. And your,
What about trim on additions? Should it match the original?
Well, that would be the hardy board then.
what visually emulates?
So the other part though is then, getting at the trim is the window sills. I
Right.
don't know if that makes a difference, because oftentimes then a modern window will have no sill.
Right.
But,
They could
and
build
there
a system.
again, that's where trying, with an addition, trying to come up with complementary architectural features, and not exact,
Right.
but complementary architectural features. If the primary house has windowsills, then for the addition, you should have some semblance of a windowsill that is complementary.
If they have wide trim boards, do wide, if they have narrow, use narrow. Yeah,
Right.
it's really just emulating what they have.
Then the window won't look so new. If you have a wider sill, and
Right.
it'll just be the casement of the window. So,
So I think that covers it, at least to get a draft written and get comments.
There's one additional item, sorry to bring up, and that is we were just talking about 3.3 and 3.4. There is a sketch. That's not what it's for design. It's 3.2. Oh, wait, yes, I'm sorry, 3.1, I guess. Page 3-4, the one about fenestration. And it's supposing, now it's not really elucidated in the text, unfortunately, but it has a no and a yes in the two different scenarios, right? And the no is obviously those large horizontal windows on the front of the house, a square window, and a sliding glass door on the front of the house. As opposed to the yes was a single door and 6 vertical windows.
So that would be opposite of anything in the historic district.
Right. So however, we were talking about infill
Right.
essentially being whatever it wants to be,
No, materials,
Okay.
not the design.
not the design.
No,
Okay.
no. Well, I've got number 3, we decided that, I believe we're gonna have a start date for additions, not reach back. 4.1, I have offered easier to use chart and explanation for components. Tim did a fantastic job on that, just encourage you to look closely. Very, very good. And I just keep thinking it's like a pamphlet as opposed to being part of the guidelines or the standards, but we'll see how it works out. Yeah, depending on what the designer comes up with for the look of the book, but it's fantastic. That's all I had in 4. 5.4, should brick staining be allowed? And I'll let Matt answer whether Wade is coming to our meeting Wednesday, you know,
No, he's coming next month.
next month. So Wade from Johnson, Wade
This,
Johnson, what's his last name? Johnson?
Rogers.
Right. He's coming to tell us the latest on brick treatments,
Ceilings and paintings and.
ceiling
Paint
painting.
the same.
Because he was not aware of what that young woman did.
Right.
You know, so that was new to him as well. So hopefully he explored
And of
that.
course, she did that and wrote that in January or so, and it was an ongoing application from probably before Wade started, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
And it's not widely dispersed. I don't think anybody else knows about it, but we have that. Matt, I might put in here, should HPC control paint colors downtown?
No. Matt wants to control it, but that's,
Smurf is good.
well, the next person will correct it, and they won't be able to sell their houses for us.
I've heard a lot of people say they really like the color of the new taco place.
We wouldn't have allowed that.
Because
Why would I do
because the downtown is too stodgy and formal, it needs to be fun.
Well, they don't like the kiosks either, you know, that's bright blue.
Not
No, the
historic.
people like the taco. I find it to be cheap
Refreshing.
looking.
Well, there's no dispute in taste, is there?
Well, that's the problem.
We're not
It's
gonna
very
put
electric.
paint colors.
But
And colors do change, you know.
If we did paint
I'm
colors, we need
happy
a whole new
to
employee just to do
to
that.
run into an elected official, and he said, isn't the HBC gonna look at colors? And I said, I don't think so, but I'll throw it on the list.
Color's too subjective.
So I think we voted no on that one.
That's fine.
Sure.
do.
And I will point out, if anybody's listening, that they already had painted that building. That was not new paint.
Right.
And we do
Yes.
not want any newly painted brick or any.
Yes.
I mean,
Bill.
show of hands, is anyone interested in controlling colors downtown? That's what I thought. Okay, just clarify.
No.
Although, you know, even the and this is.
Moving right along, Jim.
Like, we should have that minor.
Even the graphics.
No.
No.
Even the graphics on the windows to me don't look great. So, but I think it looks kind
Let
of.
them open, maybe it fits a business
Gray
model.
80 is way too
You know,
dark,
you
you
could
need gray 30.
slap a highlight
Yeah.
on color somewhere, just to call attention to, we all decided at this board, we didn't want to recommend that, but, you know, they can open that amongst themselves when it gets to them if they'd like.
Swiss Bear can decide, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think there's an appetite in making a change to do that holistically, and I'm not seeing one amongst this board, so we can keep rolling.
Next one is contemporary material for deck flooring on additions. And there I get into as well tertiary decks on contributing structures and non-contributing structures, additions. Do we still care about the deck material if it's not?
The deck is not even historic, so why are we worried about it?
Well, yeah, I mean,
The material, yeah. I agree with you, but the material,
but suppose it's a historic porch on the back of a house, his ale house, a Oliver house.
Oh, that's not.
Suppose
that-
they,
oh.
That's porch flooring.
Yeah.
It would be better to say porch flooring.
okay.
Do you mean porch flooring or do you mean deck flooring?
I'm saying deck, but porch, we don't want porch flooring changed, correct?
See, because decks are required to be structurally separated from the structure,
Right.
so technically it's not attached to the structure.
Okay.
So you could, the way I've been doing it is that you can do whatever material you
Yeah.
want on the deck.
Decks are fine, but porch floors have to stay.
Right.
So
So they're attached.
back to porch
But a
floors.
new house can build, and a new addition could use
Yes,
contemporary flooring.
yes.
A new infill and contemporary
So a new addition that includes, say, a new porch.
porch.
Decks can be attached, they're just attached in a different method than.
No, but we
freehand.
require them to be separated, structurally separated.
Removable.
The building code says the deck's its own structure.
So,
I think the answer is yes, Jim.
Okay. And a big topic that we really won't settle today.
but I want to go back to
Sure.
porch floors. What was my point? My
New porch floors.
So we had some confusion between
Porches.
tongue and groove and non-tongue groove. Do we care as long as it's, I mean, is that an issue anymore?
Here's the way I see it. One is an RIK, the other one is not, right? But we allowed one house
To do,
to do
No.
non-RIK
right,
because we said retain moisture and let some separation.
And they say opposite of that, that's why you do the tongue and groove. So I just want to know, are we clarifying that in this new go around, because then we won't have that come up again, you know?
Right.
Can you use non-tongue and groove, or we can use tongue and groove?
We need to clarify it.
I think we just clarified this time, so that's not confusion. So what is it?
So how would you install non-tongue and groove
You still have to do on the inside.
Talking about contemporary materials like Trex flooring, they're
No,
grooved
no,
on the
just-
sides.
Just wood boards. Like,
treated.
if you look at 507 East Front, we allow them to put non-tongue and groove in, with the concept being it's still wood,
Right.
but it's side by side, giving it like a nails gap in between so that it drains better.
Right, so, yeah, so you have to nail it from the top, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, probably more
I
face
don't see how you would install, non-tongue and groove without nailing it on the top.
I think
Because
it's
with the tongue and groove, you nail it in the groove,
Yeah,
and it's hidden.
that's true.
So
I think
that's
we look at
really,
most-
that's really what the difference is
And
between
the correct,
tongue and groove and non-tongue and groove.
correct installation of tongue and groove leaves a gap.
What do you mean it needs a gap?
You leave a gap between the two boards with tongue and groove
Oh.
to allow for expansion.
I've never seen it installed like that, but okay.
Mhm.
So
So,
it's actually not installed like that, it's drilled up just as damn hard and tight as you can get it, and then it shrinks, always.
Yeah,
Shrinks.
yeah.
because the idea is you want the tongue and groove tight so that you don't get water penetration.
So what are we saying, that both are okay, or we're not saying
Well,
that?
I think the question is for, you're right, nails are gonna be visible, Tim,
So it's gonna
on
look at
that.
Yeah,
The only reference to tongue, the word tongue in the chart, the other document is, on contributing structures, if it is necessary to replace front porch decking, use appropriate tongue and groove boards. That's
So-
only on contributing.
Which would be an RI-10.
Should we just change that to wood panel floor and wood boards? 'Cause are we allowing the other kind now?
Well, this is saying if you're replacing front porch decking, use appropriate tongue and groove.
We didn't act that way last time, so I'm just wondering, you know, are we being consistent?
But do we want any boards,
Just
just say
wood
wood.
boards?
wood boards?
well, so again, I think we have the outcome that we want. If you're thinking about the house there on East Front Street, they made a case for putting in non-tongue and groove.
For a feasibility issue,
Yeah, I don't know.
which is my next.
Well, it had to do with flooding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they made a legitimate case, they had they presented the evidence for it.
So I think we encouraged tongue and groove, and that was the discussion
Right,
back
Yeah.
and forth. She did not want that.
that's.
Well,
she
when
thought
they
there
start
was a-
making pressure treated tongue and groove, it'll be a whole lot easier. Just say,
We'll leave it as it is, and then we talk about feasibility, because that gets introduced by Preservation 316.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have 7, I'm sorry,
So wait, what's the call there?
leave it as it is, and
Leave it as
That's nice.
tongue
tongue
and
and
groove.
groove,
Okay.
yeah, on contributing.
But it's pressure
Why don't we just
treated,
do
and then pressure treated.
Why don't we show an effort of being more
Right.
lenient, and that's the place we go on that way.
So are we convinced tongue and groove is, even though it's there now, is that
Prime it, paint it right.
Well, unless they make a case for a different solution.
Why do they have to make a case each time? Why can't it just be easier?
Well, what do people want to do?
that's kind of my question, is where are we going?
I think it should always be tongue and groove.
I think it's a better look, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But, you know,
all every historic floor is that.
Yeah, so leave it as that unless there's a unique situation,
Right.
which is a feasibility issue.
And feasibility, I believe 507 was, well, it gets wet and it doesn't drain very well. You can make that case every single house.
That's right. I don't think it was a very good argument,
yeah, that's, yeah.
but we bought it.
Yeah. There are 8 cases where they introduced feasibility in preservation brief 16 on replacement materials. The unavailability of material, number 1. Number 2 is skilled craftsmen not available. 3 is inadequate durability of original. 4 is replacement of a secondary feature, meaning something that's not that important to the visual appearance. Replacement of a missing feature.
But that's not feasibility. Oh, I guess that would have to be in combination with something else.
Yeah. Replacement of a missing feature, enhanced resilience, now that's a tough one. Code required performance, we would not object to that anyway. And then economic feasibility is a real tough one. Because economic
How do you
feasibility,
gauge that, yeah?
I don't know we want that one in there.
And
I
I
don't
think,
think so. And these were always rich people's houses, and they tend to be rich people's houses now. But there's some real skinflint rich people.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the woman who came here about the porch on East Front Street that had turned columns.
Right, she couldn't find anybody, and in a second, you
And-
called somebody and had,
I gave her the name of a man who could do it. And she then said under oath that she had not been able to find anybody to do it. And I called him and talked to him, and he said, no, she'd never got it.
Right.
So she was basically lying. And I think we're gonna get that a lot.
So economic feasibility is really tough to prove because
Agreed.
can you afford it or can he afford it? I mean, that's.
And what's that differential?
If the house is worth $2 million, it's different than if it's a house that is worth 80 or 90.
that's right.
So let's scrub economic
And I
feasibility.
And I think if you look into the what you call it, the stuff, what's that publication called again?
Preservation brief 16.
16. If you look into 16, they explain it's not, can you afford it, can you not afford it? Economic feasibility has something to do with changing the use of the property in order to create more or less or not enough income or something to that effect. It really had nothing to do with buying the thing, it's about how much,
If I could put this
Return you
back
get
on,
out
I
of
could rent it for you.
right, stuff like that.
Okay, we'll take that out. I have questions about inadequate durability of material. We do have cases like that where the board is getting water splashed on it because of the design of the house, and they replace the board every 3 years forever. If they can make that argument, I think they'd have to somehow prove it, and all these have to be evidence from the applicant. We can't just say, okay, that's good to go.
That's pretty rare.
Replacement of a secondary feature,
I'm not sure what that means.
yeah, well, it's not prominent, it's not important to the appearance of the structure. Let's say out back might be less important than out front. And it's where they're trying to get a replacement material to emulate the original.
Are you okay with just using the term feasibility without defining it with all these other terms? Or do you think you need some specificity?
Well, all the other ones that Tim and I looked at, they all talk about technical feasibility.
I
I'm
think
sticking with that
feasibility
one.
by definition is financial.
Well, I would say it's technical. Can it be done?
That's what everybody else has put in their charts, technical feasibility. They don't define it this deeply,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure we will.
Yeah, so I think that's probably a better approach and not try, because I think this is, as you have pointed out, pretty hard to
Very hard.
yeah.
Now, is this going to come from Matt's initial discussion with him and getting into the weeds about what they've tried to do? Where is it? And then you come maybe with a recommendation that does touch on this. But
Mhm.
maybe from a category, it's technical feasibility.
But I think it needs to come from the applicant.
Sure, I've been part of the
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
I can't find anybody to do it. Call Richard first and then go from there. Well, really. What resources do we have? We have architects, we have really preservationists, we have Tim. I mean, Joe Hunt is getting his columns without having to replace them, thanks to Tim.
We have shop class, we have
Yeah, so
Mark
there's
Barker.
resources,
Yeah.
but to say the person brings it, but it has to be evidence coming to us. You would have to be convinced that they have evidence that they can't
Right,
do
and so in the design review meeting, you would
Yeah.
call them out on.
Right.
Or they could explain it, or they.
Right, and then they have a week to come up with their evidence, or a
Well,
month.
hopefully before you know,
Right.
you would have blessed the evidence.
Well, so instead of looking at it as, feasibility, I look at it more as, what are the criteria
Yeah,
for
Good.
substitute materials? Unavailability of the material, unavailability of, artisans, durability of original materials, replacement of secondary features. I mean, it's the same thing, but I look at it as more of criteria rather than feasibility, in the sense that, okay, you want to do this thing, how does it fit into this, into all these criteria?
Well, we don't necessarily want to
list the criteria.
list the criteria in advance, it's just as things we could consider. Is that different?
Well, I think it is. If you want to, the Elks building, if Dion wants to put the Elks head back on the building,
Made out of vinyl.
yeah.
I think there's probably also something to be said that if you're not going to explicitly say what you will and won't consider from Preservation Brief 16, that you also open up the floor to that applicant to say, well, this is what's recommended in Preservation Brief 16, so now you have to make a decision. I can't financially feasibly do this. How are you going to prove them wrong? So I would think that you would probably want to specify which of those conditions you do or don't want.
But most of these aren't a yes or no, they're on scales. You
Yeah.
talk a little bit on the economic side, it's not like you can say, is someone available? Well, yeah, the guy lives in Manitoba, and if you flew him in here, he could do that for you. But is that feasible to have a guy from Manitoba come in? Unless Richard knows the guy local who can do it.
Well, we went through this with
Civic theater.
yes,
With it,
Civic theater.
what's it called? The
Athens.
Athens, yes. Because they wanted to put the medallions back based on the 1911 photo, but there was no way, there's just no way to put those back. And I think they made it out of fiberglass?
Yeah, the
Some kind of
top, the
composite?
top
Yeah,
wood piece as well.
yeah.
Couldn't
The
be
carved
made.
wood
They
piece.
could not be made. But you couldn't touch it, you couldn't feel it, you couldn't even get close to it. And it wasn't at the first meeting. It was a subsequent meeting where they came back with their issues.
Sure. So, I mean, there is good to have something there, because absent something like that, you could say, well, you can see it, so it has to be the right material. So
Well, we
you
do
need
say-
something to be able to,
And we say in the standards that we also consider preservation briefs. So anybody could always go to a preservation brief and give us evidence.
And I think in the past, we've been able to come up with, a reasonable, feasible, whatever word you want to use, agreement on things like this.
So right now we have the Elks building has that scaffolding and the plywood all around it because of the this stonework that's falling off of there.
Right,
Right.
right.
I think it's these pieces across here, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Now, certainly you have a ton of other stonework up there, so, you know, if you put a piece of plastic up there, you're gonna notice, right? But,
So what happens?
but there are other materials other than
Precast
plastic.
is not known.
What's that?
You could put the fake rock and you would never know.
So Matt, is this, or Matt or Richard, is this limestone or is this precast stuff that was available in?
I'm pretty
1911.
sure that that is some kind of composite, that-
Okay,
maybe terracotta, looking at the
Yeah.
capitals and maybe that keystone,
yeah.
that's probably terracotta.
So since, just off the subject, but since Dion's announced he's not gonna be working on this for a while, are we leaving all that scaffolding and sidewalk up to protect the public?
Sandy.
I doubt it. I don't know.
Well, isn't it up to keep the
That's what I
people
just
from
said.
standing under it when it
Or getting, yeah,
It
or
was
pieces.
actually,
They already
that's
had
been shut down, since he
Okay.
doesn't have any active permits, and he's not doing anything, the city wants the
Uh,
The
Just a
sidewalk
general
has been-
question, let's say he found a precast that was that size, but it wasn't exactly that design. I assume we'd be okay if he replaced all three of them or whatever, but,
Similar style.
yeah, I mean, we're not saying it's gotta look exactly like that. So again, feasibility gets into there, I think.
I think you need some kind of a company that they can hang their hat on and come in and give them an opportunity to make their argument.
I mean, I still like feasibility, because that's in there, it's in others people's, but let's give
I
some thought
think
to
it's
it.
incumbent
The
upon-
word master.
It's incumbent upon them to make the argument, not for us to give them something to hang
Right,
around.
right.
I mean, tortoise shell and ivory are illegal,
Yeah.
and the King of Prussia quarries in Pennsylvania have been exhausted. You can't get King of Prussia marble anymore, but by and large, you can get what you need.
Yep.
I'm not saying give them, have the term feasibility somewhere in there to give them, so it's not an absolute, you can't do it.
I
So-
think we can write this particular sentence with an intent. We recognize certain materials that are features
just-
on buildings are no longer available. In this instance, when a prominent feature or something, this is where you work on the words, then you know, here's what you do to present to us whether or not that's appropriate.
You gotta be careful, yeah, you gotta be careful that it's something that they can't grab onto and just bring it to
Yeah,
us all the time.
it's gotta convey, absolutely, like,
Last
this is
resort.
not for a door, this
Because
is for
most of
a
this-
prominent feature.
Most of this stuff can be done. Now, economically, is it?
Oh, is it expensive? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Economically, it's not easy, but most of this can be done.
Sure.
If this is a building that really is probably one of the major exceptions downtown, it's got a lot of frill
Oh, yeah,
to it.
yeah.
That's gonna be hard to get it done and get it done.
Yeah, but where did MBF get that stone that's on City Hall? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah. Is that,
that's not stone.
That's not stone.
that's precast.
yeah. So 6.1 and 5.4 both have mentions of high-pressure paint or coatings removal. Just we do need to clarify that hand tools or mechanical tools are permitted. That we beat that to death a year ago. We just mean, although the mayor will object, but we do mean no sandblasting, bead blasting, etc.
Do we need to call that mechanical hand tools?
Yeah,
Yeah.
mechanical hand tools.
Make,
Okay,
make a little more, you know, a
Yes.
little tighter.
yeah.
Well, it says it right there.
On
You need no
demolition,
power to it.
Well, it could be hand tools or
Mechanical
power
hand.
Power
hand
hand
tools,
tools,
but not.
hand sanders.
All right, which is.
Jesse, do we have to revisit what this is?
power,
Mechanical hand tools?
Power hand.
So anybody who wants to go out there with a disc grinder can do that.
Mhm.
I don't know all the ins and outs of what people might be able to come up with, but some limitation that's not
Well, give some thought to it.
crazy and get a,
What are you concerned about, John?
well, just something that's gonna, could easily, well, if you think of like floor sanding. You don't know what you're doing with a floor sander, you can destroy your floors. Same thing, there's stuff out there that they could be using
Yeah.
to try and do what they're doing. And unless you really know what you're doing, you're gonna wreck stuff. You can go down to Lowe's and just buy anything, but does that mean it's the right thing to do?
There was a house in Raleigh that the owner said to the workman, "You can't sand the floors." And he said, "Okay," and when the owner came back, the man had wire brushed him.
Awesome.
It was worse.
Wow.
They're goobers out there.
But anyway, that's a big issue for certain people.
Hand sanding won't project paint onto your neighbors either. That's a big part of it is containing the mess onto your own property.
And if it's lead.
I was just gonna
based,
say that.
yes.
Let's not talk too much about how many buildings here have lead paint on them still.
And I guess the next to the last one I have is demolition procedure on non-contributing properties. Remember, we really got stuck on that
Yeah.
a couple of times. My thinking is if you look at the first criteria, which now talks about architectural significance, if you change that title to "is it contributing?" and then first criteria within that, number one, what is the architectural significance? Did somebody live there? The same criteria that are in that box. If none of those things apply, you do not go any further.
Yeah, you need to say that.
Yeah, yeah. But that may be a way out of it, rather than
Sure.
saying we have to continue on.
Yeah, I think it's simple
Yeah.
to take care of it,
Yeah.
but we just hadn't had it
Not
done
in a
before,
meeting, it
so.
wasn't simple, yeah.
Yeah, well, because it wasn't there.
And then,
So Jim, were you gonna mention anything about the proposed worksheet?
have you all reviewed the worksheet? It's fantastic, but have you all reviewed it?
No, not in detail.
You mean
I
this
will, but
Yeah, I've looked at it pretty
This one with
closely.
the table?
yeah, the one.
Yeah, and this is what we just discussed is what we were trying to clear up here. It's kind of like the evaluation worksheet for an infill COA or really for any kind of COA project or complex project. Here we have a non-contributing structure column and a contributing structure column, and the idea is, okay, if it's non-contributing, is it the last oldest unique of something? Does it have historic significance? If a non-contributing structure does not immediately meet those two things, then, we're done.
So it's page 6.6 is what you're looking at.
Yeah,
But then if you just change that consideration one to be, is it contributing? And then move those down a notch.
Well,
Isn't
and-
that,
and the idea is that we should know long before we ever get to the demolition hearing as to whether a non-contributing, something that is non-contributing right now, whether it would come close to meeting these criteria.
we should,
This should not be a surprise to anyone. We
At
shouldn't
the
get
hearing.
into a demolition hearing. It's like, oh, wait a minute, this contributing thing is important. We should know that well in advance.
short of somebody coming and providing history that we've never heard.
Yeah.
Expert testimony in some fashion.
Well, it certainly helps that we have a deadline
Yeah,
before the design review meeting. We at least have a couple days to prepare.
And I think Matt, you certainly would raise a flag very early on that, hey, wait a minute, this might be something important to consider before we knock it down.
Mhm.
now we will add a large number of houses to contributing in Riverside, 30 or so,
I think we're more like 50 or 60.
50 or 60.
No, I think, I bet it's like 50 or 60.
Does Riverside know that?
About,
Are we expanding the?
about 50 or 60 of them.
Yeah.
No.
It's up to you guys, but you may want to put that word out there.
Yeah, it's been discussed at 2 meetings,
Well,
I mean,
we've-
we'll get the word out if we get the grant.
Yeah.
If we don't get the grant,
Doesn't matter.
yeah, so I don't know that it's necessarily time to push out, hey, this is happening,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
Trey's
just
covered it in his.
to the
newsletter.
Riverside people, since you have one of the officers of the association here.
What's the grant for?
To do, update the inventory, because it hasn't been done in decades,
Do you know when we
34
find it out?
years.
this summer, like, within a month or two.
So anyway, the last thing that Mike added was, should the city initiate the demolition by neglect process
city staff, we have done that in
from
the
city
past.
staff?
Yeah, we have done that in the
Well,
past.
I think you should.
You change that?
Or are you questioning that maybe we shouldn't?
No, I think you should.
Okay, good.
So you change that?
'Cause
No, we
It's
already
already
had
had
it when, yeah, we already do that.
But I thought you were told not to.
Oh, well, we have done it in the past, and more recently I've been told not to, yes.
But now you can't.
Well, it's not, it's just
Still-
administrative policy. It's not in the guidelines.
No, not a guideline. I don't think it was intended.
No, it wasn't, there's no number there, it was just having the neighbors rat on their other neighbor is, after it's happened a few times, now everybody's like, whatever. If the city doesn't care, we don't care.
My frustration is, there's a long list on our list already,
Yes?
and nothing's happened
Mm.
except one. And thank goodness it did. But, you know, we look at Broad Street.
I don't know how long ago you're talking, what time frame are you saying one, because,
Well, since I've been chairman,
okay, 1 year,
yeah.
okay.
So, there's a
How
lot
many
on the list.
though? There's probably 6 or 8.
At least, yeah.
There's about 20.
In George, the Wren House on George
Mhm.
Street, and you can go down the list. Some are making progress. with buying.
Yeah, we have Mr. Alex Reinberg's house. He's working on that.
But
Well, the Bible says Jesus is coming, but it doesn't say when.
it
He
was,
has a deadline. so-
it was certainly a featured topic at the charrettes.
Mhm, yeah.
So we did one, so let's figure out. So anything else to add? Anything you're concerned about in the draft?
The last thing, definitions are really important, and I haven't studied the definitions
I haven't
at
either,
all.
but I think that would be a good thing. to
But
know.
definitions, borrowing them from other places, if there's ones that we know, we don't really love this definition, but I'll spend
That's a good
some
point.
time with the definitions before we have a
Sure.
final draft.
And I think we're getting away, I believe, because it will be an electronic document, it'll be a lot easier to put a link in there to the State Historic Preservation Office and not have to get into, here's their address and all that, yeah. So anything else? Appreciate you all coming.
Appreciate you.
Again, thanks to Tim for putting it all together. So what's today, Monday, Thursday, day, I think?
We've got a meeting Wednesday.
Yes.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of lingering things. Are we comfortable by the end of the week after a couple of blessings of the meeting Wednesday to start to
Well,
post
it's up to
this?
Tim, but,
No.
you know, he's.
No, we're not quite
I
there
mean,
yet.
we're not talking about that meeting.
Do we need to have another meeting like this?
I think if anybody has anything
Do I
that
have to?
they're concerned about, bring it up Wednesday,
I think you're
design
right.
review,
Okay,
Mike,
Format.
What's that?
and
a company that I
No,
would
everything
the
else
the
is
name of
on
the
Wednesday.
thing throughout, you can change that pretty readily, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
mine. But my biggest concern as far as significant changes is that, what did I call it, the components, matrix thing, and contributing additions, infills related to contemporary materials.
The whole chart.
Yeah, where that goes, how it fits in, whether we're in agreement with that. I mean, that's really from what I'm hearing, and I know that you two were supportive of the approach. Just a place that, okay, I want to change, I might want to change some windows. What can I do based on whether it's, contributing, addition, infill?
But it kind of almost rides over top of this, because it just points directions. So I like the idea of not making it part of it, but kind of like an appendix, or like something that just kind of points you in the,
Right.
by itself, it's not creating any standards, it's just telling you, you want to do this? Okay, here's the section, here's what you gotta do.
And that's
It's
that's important for us to make that
It's a
decision.
roadmap, essentially, or
And I tried to add a little bit more with narratives in the sense of, okay, you got a window, it's an old window, here's what you do to repair it, and here's why you want to repair it versus replace it. And I'm hoping that having this extra narrative on these architectural components, then as a commission, and I'm not thinking about the commission next year, I'm thinking about the commission 5 years down the road, that they've got something that can say, okay, look, we really don't want you to replace these windows, repair them.
Yeah, and this is why.
And I'm not sure that things like that are in the document right now, as far as, okay, here's why.
Well,
it's not,
why-
and it probably could be.
Well, why don't the principals actually have that? Aren't we calling those narrative sections principles? Why aren't the principals?
Well, some of them are a
saying
little bit more involved than anything that we have. I added a lot on lime mortar. Because I told Sheriff, I said what was in there. There was something in there about lime mortar should have a scoop of Portland cement in it, and it's like, Trip, this is really not a good recommendation to make. Instead, it needs to be, okay, why do you want to use lime mortar with old bricks? That's more of the explanation than how to mix your own mortar.
And you say that means with no Portland cement?
Well, depends on who you talk to and what it is you're trying to do.
Well,
The risk is that that's all they look at,
Yeah.
and they come to the meeting
Yeah.
and say, well, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
And so somehow
Right.
it needs to be secondary to the standards.
And then as an appendix, I think that's a good approach.
And as an appendix, you could always make the argument, well, it's in the guidelines, right?
No, right.
And it's referenced, it'd be referenced
Yeah.
in there.
Quick reference.
Yeah, as just saying, appendix this has this and this and this, so that you
Yeah.
can always refer to it, and you can use it as.
And just for an FYI, before we adjourn, once we have the draft ready, not the pretty draft, just the Word draft,
Content.
we're gonna link it, put it on postcards, and notify every single property owner in both historic districts where they can go read it. It takes about 2 weeks for me to get those. I'm just gonna pay a company to put the QR code on it, send it, it's gonna be a postcard. So, just so you know, and,
And when you do that, are you gonna be able to tell how many people?
I can see how many people hit the website, yeah.
I-
But everybody will get a direct notification. I can't make them go to
No,
scan
no.
the code, but we
I
are
just-
gonna send it because I committed to doing that. So I'm not sure if those postcards are actually going to list a date or dates of public comment meetings, or this will just be the draft yet. I gotta get a little more direction, but we're close enough where we can start talking about those types of logistical things.
Yeah,
That's
well-
good, we're on schedule.
It probably doesn't need
Thank you,
to,
Tim.
it probably doesn't need to have a date on it, because if people are QR coding to get to it, you can have the date there when they get there.
You still probably want to post
I still want to put the meeting dates for people that
Yes.
are more comfortable showing up. If I'm gonna go through the time and expense of
Yes.
doing a mailer, I think we put dates of meetings on it.
Yeah, even if
And
it's-
we appreciate yours and Robert's help, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, what is our
How are people,
adjourn?
how are
So,
people giving their feedback on that?
What's that?
How are people gonna be giving their feedback on that?
We'll set up a box or something, or send it straight to my email.
You're adventurous.
I'll place out a box or something.
Well, that's how all the land use ordinance comments are going. They're going right to my
I think I'll
email.
send them to Robert, he can screen.
No, Robert's email's way worse than mine is,
Put a
so.
survey might be in the box, right?
So if nothing else, are we,
We'll
motion
figure that out.
to adjourn,
Move to adjourn.
second, all in favor?
Oh.
Opposed?